Good morning, everybody. I am going to start about the comparative anatomy of brain. Before going to discussion about the comparative anatomy of brain in different vertebrates group, actually we should know about the structure of brain and the embryological development of the brain. So today I would like to discuss about the embryological development of brain with the anatomical structure of the brain. So you see, this is brain actually. It acts as a central information processing center, having command and control system of the body. It controls all activities actually of the organism such as speech, memory, intelligence, emotion, thought, hunger, thirst, balance of the body, etc. So the position of the brain actually it present in the head region inside the cranium. Cranium is nothing, actually it is a part of brain. It is a part of actually skull. Human brain is approximately, average weight is 1200 gram to 1400 gram, and the volume is approximately 1400 cc. Brain covered by meninx. It is a meninx means actually brain is surrounded by actually a layer, 3-layer tissue. This is called meninx. So brain cases, meninx and bony cases is called actually cranium. That brain cases that is consist of tissue, it is called meninx, and this meninx is again surrounded by actually skull. This is called cranium. So brain is the actually anterior part of the central nervous system. It acts as a central information processing center. So brain develop as a chain of 3 vesicles. Brain develop as a chain of 3 vesicles. The prosencephalon or forebrain, the mesencephalon or midbrain, and rhombencephalon or hindbrain. Prosencephalon, this is prosencephalon, it is mesencephalon, and it is rhombencephalon. 3 vesicles, forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The prosencephalon, this is prosencephalon, later gives of telencephalon and diencephalon. This is telencephalon and this is diencephalon. The prosencephalon modified into telencephalon and diencephalon. This is telencephalon and this is diencephalon. Again, mesencephalon, this is embryological vesicles. Mesencephalon on midbrain consists of mainly crura cerebri and corpora quadragemina. That means the mesencephalon in the further development, the mesencephalon is not actually developed differently. Again, this is a rhombencephalon or hindbrain. Rhombencephalon or hindbrain. This rhombencephalon gives of metencephalon and myelencephalon. Metencephalon consists of pons, varoli, and cerebellum, and myelencephalon consists of medulla oblongata. That means you see, in the first embryological state, actually 3 brain vesicles, forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And these 3 vesicles actually again divided into many vesicles. So development, this is development of brain. The rudiment of brain, this is the rudiment of brain. This is the rudiment of brain. You see, this is the embryological embryo of the vertebra. It is up to 3 germinal layer is formed. Ectoderm, yellow is ectoderm, blue is mesoderm, and green is endoderm. 3 germinal layer, ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. It is the cross section of the embryo and it is longitudinal section. You see, inner the green line is mesoderm, endoderm, blue mesoderm, and yellow is actually ectoderm, the 3 germinal layer. So this there are rudiment of brain. This is the rudiment of brain and spinal cord. This is the rudiment of brain and spinal cord. Appears as a ectodermal thickening. It is ectoderm. This is ectoderm. It is thickening of the cell. It is ectodermal cell thicken on the dorsal side of the embryo. This is, you see, this is embryo. It is dorsal side. It is ventral side. The dorsal side. This is the thickening of the brain rudiments actually. This is the dorsal side of the embryo. It is ventral side of the embryo. So the rudiment of brain, this is the rudiment of brain and spinal cord, appears as a ectodermal thickening on the dorsal side of the embryo. That is, this is called neural plate. Thickening of the ectodermal cell at the dorsal side of the embryo, this is called neural plate. By the process of differential growth, these cells are actually multiply many times. So process of differential growth and cell migration, the cells of the neural plate actually migrate and forming a neural fold. This neural fold arises on both sides. This is neural fold. The cells of the neural plate develop and finally the neural fold is developed. The cells of the neural fold actually migrate and arises on the both sides. This is neural fold arises on the both side of the plate. It is plate. So cell actually move towards the dorsal side as a neural fold is actually developed. Fold soon rise. This is the fold. Fold soon rise and appears each other and forms a neural groove. This is the neural groove and forms a neural groove between them. This is the folds. These neural folds actually the rise and approaches each other and finally this neural fold attach to each other and neural groove. This is the neural groove between the fold and finally converted into a neural tube. This is the tube with a neural space. The neural tube, this is when the neural tube is formed, sinks down to take a position immediately above the notochord. This is notochord. Already notochord is developed. Notochord means it is the actually structure, embryological structure. Actually, this is the notochord. And this is the embryological structure. Future backbone is developed. So the neural tube sinks down to take a position immediately above the notochord. Neural groove. This is the neural groove. So it is longitudinal section. This is the neural groove. So neural groove wider in front. It is wider and narrow behind, and pispine it is narrow. From the narrow part of the neural tube, spinal cord is developed, and the wider part of the neural tube, brain is developed. Next, you see, this is the lateral cell of the neural plate. This is the red one lateral cells. These lateral cells of the neural fold, red one lateral cells. These lateral cells of the neural fold, it is neural fold, the lateral cells of the neural fold not take part in the formation of the neural tube. These red cells, that means the lateral cells of the neural plate, not takes place in the formation of the neural tube. This is called neural crest cell. These are called neural crest cell. And neural crest cell migrate and forms Schwann cell. This is the Schwann cell. It is situated in the actually nervous tissue, with the nervous tissue and other driver structure, sensory neuron and other structures are developed from the neural crest cells. This is the tube. This is not it. This is the tube. The tube when formed is an unequal dimension. This is when tube is formed unequal dimension. Anterior end is expanded. This anterior end is expanded and cavity is big. You see cavity is big and wall are thicker. This is the wall are thicker than the posterior end. You see next slide. This is These are, you see, the tube when formed actually, it is unequal diameter. The actually each anterior end is expanded. Anterior end is expanded. Cavity is big. This is the cavity of the brain rudiments. Cavity is big and the walls are thicker. These are the thicker wall than the posterior end of the tube. This is the brain tube and posterior wall is thin than the anterior wall. The brain developed from the anterior part. And spinal cord developed from the posterior part. The various parts of the brain are first indicated as a thickening of the wall of the neural tube, which are folded, especially in the case of cerebral hemisphere. This is the cerebral hemisphere. This is the folding system, by the development, in the case of the cerebral hemisphere, by the development of the pocket-like evagination of the brain. Shallow constriction, these are the constriction, 2, 3, 4, 5 constriction. Shallow constriction develop early at around the neural tube and permitting the distinguish several brain vesicles. These are the different brain vesicles. In the prior stage, the 3 brain vesicles, 2 constriction develop. This is the first constriction. This is second constriction. With the 3 brain vesicles, actually, neural tube divided by 3 vesicles due to the constriction of 2 constriction. So 3 such brain vesicles appears at the beginning. The most anterior brain vesicle is prosencephalon. Later give rise to telencephalon and diencephalon. The second brain vesicles, this is second brain vesicles, or the mesencephalon, not subdivided. You see, mesencephalon is not subdivided. This mesencephalon consists of crura cerebri and the corpora quadrigemina. Again, third brain vesicle, this is third brain vesicle, rhombencephalon. Give rise to metencephalon and myencephalon. Metencephalon consists of pons and cerebellum, and myencephalon consists of only medulla. This is the embryological development of the brain. Next is, you see, this is the meninx. Meninx, it is nothing. Actually, meninx is a covering of the brain. These meninx are again surrounded by bone, skull bone. This is the skull bone, and this skull bone is again surrounded by actually skin. This is the skin bone. This is meninx. Mainly meninx consists of 3 layers of tissue. Durameter, it is durameter. Next is second line is arachnoid. This is durameter, it is arachnoid. And third one, pyometer. The 3 layers of tissue. Durameter, arachnoid and pyometer. This is called meninx actually. Meninx consists of 3 layers of tissue. Durameter, arachnoid and pyometer. The space between durameter and arachnoid, there is a space between durameter and arachnoid. It is called subdural space. This is called subdural space. Space between durameter and arachnoid. Again, there is a space between the arachnoid and pyometer. This is the pyometer. This is pyometer. The space between arachnoid and pyometer is called subarachnoid space. This is the meninx. You see, so brain surrounded by a thick layer of tissue. This thick layer of tissue consists of actually 3 layers of tissue. Outer is durameter, inner is pyometer, and middle is arachnoid. The space between durameter and arachnoid is called subdural space. This is subdural space, and space between arachnoid and pyometer, it is called subarachnoid space. Again, this pyometer, this is the pyometer. This pyometer jointed with the inner side of the brain by a 3 flexi cerebri. It is the top nerve. 2 flexi cerebri jointed with brain. This pyometer is jointed with brain via 2 plexus cerebri. One is anterior flexi cerebri, another is ventral flexi cerebri. That means pyometer is jointed with brain internally by a 2 tough nerve. It is called flexi cerebri. 2 anteriorly it is called anterior flexi cerebri is called anterior choroid plexus, and ventral side of the flexi cerebri is called ventral plexus. Next issue. Next you see, this is prosencephalon. This is prosencephalon. It is prosencephalon. Prosencephalon, it is forebrain. It is also called forebrain. A pair of solid cup-shaped structure situated inferior to the cerebral hemisphere. This is prosencephalon. It is consists of cerebral hemisphere and the diencephalon. Prosencephalon consists of telencephalon and diencephalon. Telencephalon is actually known as cerebral hemisphere. A pair of solid cup-shaped structure. This is the pair of solid cup-shaped structure situated inferior to the cerebral hemisphere called olfactory lobe or olfactory lobe. This is visible only from the ventral side of the brain. It is also called rhinencephalon. It is mainly concerned with the smell and touch. It is mainly concerned with the smell. It is. This olfactory nerve arises from the olfactory lobe jointed with the nasal epithelium. So it is mainly concerned with the smell. Next you see, this is telencephalon. Telencephalon or cerebral hemisphere. The cerebral hemisphere actually 2 halves. This cerebral hemisphere actually 2 halves jointed the cerebrum, separated each other. You see, this is cerebral hemisphere. It is cerebral hemisphere actually 2 halves, left and right half, and jointed forms the cerebral hemisphere. This is externally separated. The 2 halves of the cerebral hemisphere externally separated each other by a longitudinal fissure. It is longitudinal fissure. This is externally separated. But internally, these 2 halves of the cerebral hemisphere jointed by a thick nerve. It is called corpus callosum. This is called corpus callosum. It is corpus callosum. The left half of the cerebral hemisphere and the right half of the cerebral hemisphere jointed internally by a tough nerve. It is called corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is anteriorly folded back. This is corpus callosum, gray one. Corpus callosum actually anteriorly folded back. It is, you see, anterior side is folded back. It is called genu, Genu. It is called genu, and this is jointed with the olfactory lobe. Next is, you see, the posterior, it is knob-like. Corpus callosum, the posterior side of the corpus callosum is knob-like, and it is called splenium. It is called splenium. The 2 halves of the cerebral hemisphere jointed each other internally by a thick nerve. It is called corpus callosum, and corpus callosum anteriorly folded back. It is anteriorly folded back. It is called genu, and posteriorly it is knob-like. It is called splenium. Next is diencephalon. It is diencephalon. Diencephalon. This is diencephalon. Diencephalon, this is the part of the brain visible only the inferior side of the brain. It is telencephalon. Below the telencephalon, diencephalon is actually situated. Diencephalon is situated below the cerebral hemisphere. It is, you see, it is telencephalon, and here it is diencephalon. It is diencephalon. This part is visible, the diencephalon, the part is visible only inferior side, inferior side of the brain. Cavity is narrow and consists of epithalamus, thalamus and hypothalamus. You see, it is diencephalon. This is the sketch of the diencephalon. It is consists of the epithelium, epithalamus, thalamus and hypothalamus. The roof is called epithalamus and wall is called, it is thalamus, red one thalamus and yellow is called actually hypothalamus. It is the way through which actually forebrain jointed with the hindbrain. Frontbrain is situated here and hindbrain is situated here. This is diencephalon. Diencephalon consists of epithalamus, thalamus and hypothalamus. Epithalamus, the roof is epithalamus and wall is called thalamus and the floor is called hypothalamus. Anterior side of the epithalamus. This is epithalamus. Anterior side of the epithalamus folded and connect with pyometer. Pyometer means the third layer of the meninx. This anterior side of the epithalamus jointed with the pyometer of the meninx by anterior choroid plexus. It is called anterior choroid plexus. And posterior side provided with pineal gland. It is pineal gland. Next wall is called thalamus, and thalamus acts as a relay station, and floor is called hypothalamus. Hypothalamus includes the optic chiasma. Next is infundibulum. This is infundibulum, and arising from the downgrowth and forming a posterior lobe. This is posterior lobe, in which actually situated the pituitary gland. And hypothalamus includes another structure, optic chiasma. This is optic chiasma. You see, this is optic nerve. These are the eyeball. This is optic nerve. This optic nerve, right side of the eyeball and left side of the eyeball. This optic nerve arises from the eyeball, and inside the hypothalamus, actually, this optic nerve decasseting. That means crisscross, decasseting, and forming a junction. It is called optic chiasma. This optic chiasma situated. This optic chiasma situated at the hypothalamus. This is floor. This floor is actually jointed with the optic chiasma. This is optic chiasma. This is the floor. This is the floor of the diencephalon. This is hypothalamus. So this optic chiasma situated in the hypothalamus. Next is mesencephalon. This is mesencephalon. Mesencephalon, it is actually connector. It is consists of the thick nerve. This is a connector of forebrain and hindbrain. This is hindbrain and it is midbrain and it is forebrain. It is a connector. Relatively small part of the brain. It is relatively small part of the brain and consists of two heavy fiber tract. This is two heavy fiber tract. This is called crura cerebri and corpora quadrigemina, heavy fiber tract. It is mesencephalon consists of mainly two heavy fiber tract. It is called crura cerebri and corpora quadrigemina. So each side of the dorsal surface, it is the dorsal surface. It is the dorsal surface of the midbrain. It is midbrain. It is the dorsal surface. This dorsal surface, there are two swellings. It is two swelling, superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. Two swelling. This is called superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. Next is hindbrain. This is hindbrain. Hindbrain, it is known as rhombencephalon. It is consist of cerebellum, pons varolii, cerebellum, pons varolii, and medulla oblongata. Cerebellum, pons varolii, and medulla oblongata. This is hindbrain. It is main brain, midbrain, and it is forebrain. So cerebellum is very large. This is cerebellum. It is very large and well developed. These are also two lobes, consist of two lobes and jointed with each other by a thick nerve. It is called vermis. Next, medulla oblongata. It is a lowermost part of the brain. It is medulla oblongata. It is the lowermost part of the brain, and it is conical form and encloses a cavity of fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle. The roof of the medulla oblongata. This is the roof of the medulla oblongata jointed with pyometer by a posterior choroid plexus. Anterior choroid plexus jointed with the epithalamus, and the anterior choroid plexus jointed with the medulla oblongata. Pons varolii, it is oval mass. It is pons varolii, it is oval mass, and lie above the medulla oblongata. This is medulla oblongata, this is medulla oblongata, and it is pons varolii. It is cerebellum. This is the structure of the hindbrain. So you see, these are the ventricle, different ventricle. I will discuss later on. The lateral ventricle, two lateral ventricle, it is situated in the cerebral hemisphere. Next, third ventricle, it is situated in the hypothalamus, and fourth ventricle, it is situated in the pons varolii. So this is the structure, anatomical structure of the brain. The different ventricles are actually available inside the brain vesicles. I will discuss later on. Thank you very much.